Dropper seat posts are everywhere, including in the firing line of muck and grime. A good thing to do to keep it running better for longer is a quick teardown rebuild. I'm going to show you how to do that today. In this video, we're going to be servicing a cartridge-based system such as this Crank Brothers Highline. A RockShox Reverb or a Fox Transfer uses a slightly different system and cannot be serviced in this way. As you can see, I've already removed the seat post from the bike. If you grab some masking tape, you can just put a bit on your saddle rail. This will make getting it in the same position again easier. And also you can apply some to the gear cable, which actuates at the bottom of the seat post. This means it won't drop back into the frame and potentially make your job a bit harder when you're reinstalling the post. You can also make a note of how far the saddle sat in the frame using the indication marks on the seat post. For this service, I will be using a 10mm Allen key, a 5mm Allen key, and a 2.5mm Allen key. As well as that, I'm using quite a small flat head screwdriver and a hammer that's got, we call it a toffee hammer, something that's got a non-metal option, which is always very useful. Also things to use are a nice slick suspension grease, some isopropyl cleaner, and some blue towel. The first thing we're going to do is actually disconnect the cartridge from the top of the post. You do this by removing the seat clamp assembly with your 5mm Allen key. So I've removed the seat clamp there, the whole assembly, and I'm going to move it to one side, leave it somewhere safe, and come back for it later. Now, at the top of this seat post is this very small 2.5mm bolt. This isn't something you actually need to remove because all the serviceable parts can be accessed via the bottom, but I just thought I'd show you how easy it is to do. This is a really small bolt. So yeah, again, put it somewhere safe. If you leave it there, I promise it will disappear and it will never come back. So I'm going to put it over with the seat clamp assembly somewhere nice and safe. So the cartridge is disconnected at the top half. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take out this whole assembly out the bottom. You can use a vise to clamp on there, or there is a 10mm interface, which is nice and easy. If this is a bit tight, maybe get some towel on it just to get a bit of purchase. There we go. Relatively easy to do. Then it should just come out by hand. So this part is a moving part, so sometimes these, on some styles they can kind of corrode and things like that, the actuator at the bottom. These ones tend to be like quite well finished alloy, so it should be okay. A bit of friction at the lever can actually be to corrosion or stiction in this part here. So if that is the case, it's always worth maybe a drop of lube, a bit of elbow grease and cleaning that up. And now, because the cartridge is disconnected at the top, we can actually just pull the whole thing out and lay it down. Like I said, this service is doable without undoing that bolt. It just means everything protrudes out the bottom, but it's relatively simple to do. And the next thing we're going to be doing is taking off this collar. This is where your main seal sits that keeps out the elements. So this is really important to keep running smooth. Often, if there's a lot of stiction in the system, if it's really slow to return, this is your main culprit. You can see that this whole tube here is just going to slide off. And it's really important. We're going to give that a clean in a bit. Just below the main seal is this bush, which can also give you problems on some posts. What happens is grit gets in there, and what is quite a close tolerance fit, if there is any muck that gets in there, you get the really horrible grinding when you get the white mark stripping down the back of your post, and when it makes it really slow to return. So this one, luckily it has a little mark just there, and we can just pull that straight off. As you can see on this seat post, we have what we call the keys here. Now what these do is they stop that kind of side to side play. If your seat post has developed a lot of play, the chances are that these are worn, but they're actually made to wear. And what I mean by that is these are replaceable parts that stop the expensive seat post being a write-off when it develops play. So it's a really simple job to do. They do have a little slot there. So using a small flathead screwdriver, we can just get underneath them there and prise them up. Like I said, this is a replaceable part, and it's actually designed to be consumable to save your seat post and make it last for longer. And the last part of the assembly that I just need to use this screwdriver to remove is this small little snap ring that sits just at the bottom of the shaft there. Yeah, we're just going to take that, put that to one side. And what that means is that this seal can just come straight off. You do have to remove the keys to access this seal, and having it off certainly makes it a lot easier to lube. So now the seat post is completely apart, this is the time for a good inspection and a thoroughly good clean. As always on suspension parts, use a beam of light to check along, and this will really aid your inspection to see any small details that might go missed in normal light. Now we're about to rebuild our seat posts. I do strongly advise being careful which grease you use. You want to be using a suspension grease. If you're using a normal assembly grease, it is just too thick, it's too viscous, and will create friction, and your seat post will be so slow, and that will be the reason. So a nice thin grease. Now we want to be using a generous amount of lube for that interface. So before we even assemble the post, we're going to put a healthy serving into here. And I also want you to think about the channels that these keys work in. If you imagine the way a seat post works, especially on some bikes that have slightly slacker seat tube angles and potentially quite a heavy rider, all that force from these two small keys is being put down. The force is coming this way from almost behind and down the bike, and it's being forced that way. So these relatively small pieces have to take quite a substantial load. It's also worth noting that if your bike kind of does suffer from that, and your bike does have a slack seat tube angle, maybe try and move your weight in line with the seat post, not vertical, but in line. This will actually keep your seat post smoother for longer and reduce the load that it has to take. When we're putting on this seal here, if you try and force it just through this way, it won't like it at all. So we start there, almost at 45 to the post, rotate it, and it will just pop on. We're going to slide that up and out the way before reinstalling this assembly of keys and bushings here. So I've got my keys here, and I'm just going to snap it in by hand, and then with the soft part of a hammer, I'm just going to run along it, make sure it's well seated, and then I'm going to visually inspect it to make sure that top part is parallel with the post. If it's at an angle, well then it's not installed correctly. I'm going to pop that snap ring back on, and then we're going to just slide the seat post all together. This seal here only really needs to be done up hand tight, that sort of territory. You don't need to be swinging off it. So there we go, that's the seal all serviced. Basically all we've got to do now is reinstall the cartridge. So I'm going to drop that in there, reach for that very small 2.5mm bolt and just nip that up. With these small alloy bolts, don't put a lot of torque that way. When you come to actually make sure it's nice and tight, do it with a nice decent quality Allen key. If you do it with a ball-headed one, it will just kind of cause the bolt damage, which is obviously the last thing we want. So with this seal here, with this O-ring, it's really important that it's not pinching, it's not coming at an angle, and it's not interrupting anything those threads are trying to do. So what I would do is actually just put it on the table and slide the whole thing down like so. And then just thread it in. Now once that's kind of up hand tight, yeah, again, we're just gonna nip this up. You don't need to swing off it, guys. Now we just need to reinstall the seat clamp assembly on top. The orientation is really important here for how we install this seat clamp. Bit of a rookie error is to put one of those parts back to front and your seat position will never be right. So just take a bit of extra care. Also, although these ones seem to be okay, some seat posts do suffer from these bolts kind of working loose over time. So it's worth cleaning them with like an isopropyl alcohol, removing all the grease and putting a bit of retaining compound. Now, the reason it's really important to clean them is that retaining compound won't be able to work properly if it's contaminated with grease. So just be careful for that. These ones are okay, but just, you know, if that's something you do suffer from, just put a little dab on there. And there we have it. That's how to service a cartridge-based seat post, such as this Crankbrothers Highline here. So all you've got to do, refit it to the bike, and you are good to go. Now, if you want to stick with the channel, you can see the maintenance video I did where I did a real-time service on a rear shock. That's worth checking out. So click down here for that one. And if you want to see 7 ways you're destroying your mountain bike, click down here to go for that one with the Dodster. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. We'll see you next time.